Hello, good morning, and welcome to Daybreak on Trust TV. It is a beautiful Thursday morning right here in the nation's capital, and we're here to make sure that your morning gets up to a very, very good start. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.
It's a beautiful morning here in the capital city. We wish the same for our viewers across flood-ravaged states. We hope that you are getting the kind of support that you deserve. I am Sunday Michael Ogu.
Yes, definitely. The floods are
It's terrible. We thought with the recession in Lokoja, it would have been the worst we would have heard. But suddenly, the southern state...
Niger Delta is terrible.
It's something else. To the extent that government is... asking workers in some states not to come to work. And I said to myself, is the flood avoiding the houses? The houses and the offices are located in the same...
Well, at least they can concentrate on other things apart from going to work. I mean, like, it is, the devastation is just...
It's unimaginable.
All right. Well, we do hope that things get better.
Absolutely.
And, of course, the people get the help they need. All right, so let's go straight into the headlines for this morning. Talking about the flood, 4,885 households ravaged by flood in Ogun, says NEMA.
Refusal to pay rented crowd triggered violence at Atiku's rally, APC.
And assaults, you have case to answer, Senate panel tells CCT boss.
And now the details. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, says over 4,000 households have been ravaged by the recent flood incident in Ogun State. The Director General of NEMA, Mustafa Ahmed, disclosed this in Abeokuta during the presentation of relief materials to the state government for distribution to the victims across the state. Ahmed, who was represented by the Director of Special Duties, Dr. Bamidele Onimodi, said the development had resulted in loss of life, human displacement, loss of means of livelihood, and socio-economic dislocation. Ahmed noted that several states of the Federation, including Ogun, had suffered widespread flood disaster in the past few weeks.
And switching gears to politics now, the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, has blamed the People's Democratic Party for the violence which broke out at the rally of the party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, in Kaduna on Monday. Reacting to the incident in a statement issued on Wednesday, National Publicity Secretary of the ruling party, Felix Morka, described the fallout at the rally as self-inflicted. According to him, the incident was simply a matter of a rented crowd that went irate when the party's rent-a-crowd managers disappeared with funds meant to pay for the rented crowd.
Now to the Senate. The Senate Committee on Ethics, Privilege and Public Petitions has reopened a petition leveled against the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, CCT, Mr. Enladi Umar, over alleged assault of a security guard, Mr. Clement Shagwak. Briefing newsmen on Wednesday on the case, the chairman of the Senate Committee, Senator Ayo Akin Yelori, PDP Ondo, said the panel reopened the case against Umar after the court's judgment. The CCT chairman had told the committee through his lawyers that he was already in court to stop the investigation. But the court gave a declarative judgment on the matter, saying the Senate had the locus standi to proceed with the case. Shagwak had petitioned the Senate alleging that he was assaulted by Umar and a policeman attached to him after he informed him that his car was wrongly parked at Barnes Plaza, Wuse 2, Abuja on March 29, 2021.
All right, so that's it for the headlines right now. We'll go into some reports this morning. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has signed the Nigeria Startup Bill 2022 into law to create an enabling environment for the establishment, development and operation of startups in the country. The law, which holds huge benefits for the Nigerian economy, adopts an approach of allowing startups to identify business challenges and voice them out. Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, announced this on Wednesday after a meeting with the President at the State House in Abuja. The report.
The Nigeria Startup Act 2022 is a joint initiative by Nigeria's tech startup ecosystem and the presidency to harness the potential of Nigeria's digital economy through co-created regulations. The Startup Bill, which was passed on July 20, 2022 and signed on Wednesday, is expected to ensure that Nigeria's laws and regulations are clear and planned in such a way that they work for the tech ecosystem. Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, is of the view that the Act will consolidate the growth of the digital economy.
Startup law is just maybe young innovators that come up with some super ideas that can bring positive change to the world. They come up with a proposed solution that will resolve or solve a complex problem. So that is what we call startup. Usually you will see their market value is not even up to 10 million in some cases. So in that situation, to grow, they need government patronage, they need government intervention, and they need government incentives and tax holiday.
The minister dares to boast that the startup bill will experience the same kind of success that has been recorded in other spheres of the digital economy, including the National Identity Management Commission.
NIMSI was established in 2007, 15 years ago. The total number of enrollment in NIMSI Act from 2007 to 2020 October, when Mr. President directed me to supervise NIMSI, within 15 years, the whole database was 39 million. In spite of many billions spent for the enrollment, and many people were detained because of corrupt practices in mismanaging the fund. From October 2020 to October 2022, without any intervention from government, I increased the database from 39 million to more than 90 million today. We enrolled more than 51 million users in less than 2 years, while we inherited only 39 in 15 years.
The communication and digital economy sector has so far contributed 40% to the country's gross domestic product in 2022. It is expected that the newly signed act will quicken the startup ecosystem in Nigeria, especially if it is adopted by all states in the country. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Ahead of the 2023 elections, some Nigerians are worried about the political defections activities of politicians. In Makurdi, Benue State capital, residents say cross-carpeting from one political party to another is not helping Nigeria's democratic journey. The report.
Elections are here again, and politicians are exhibiting their old tactics. One of these is defections, leaving one political party to another. Makurdi residents say the idea is not for the good of the people, but for personal interest.
I strongly feel that people who move from one political party to another do it because of the personal interest or the personal gain they will have. Supposing a person that is campaigning for a political seat comes and gives them a better offer, they leave the previous party they were in and move to the next party because of what they will gain. I'm not really sure if I'm in the position to tell them, please stay in one political party because this is the right man. But they know what they are gaining. And what if I say they should stay there and they don't have enough food to eat, or the person disappoints? Oh no, there are so many things that are involved that are at stake. So, but I feel that the masses should look into it. They should do what is right. They should not just keep jumping because somebody is offering them peanuts. Because in the long run, this money will finish. The amount of money they are giving you will soon finish. But a good nation will always stand.
Others say, although freedom of association is guaranteed, older politicians are, however, teaching the younger generation bad examples. They call on party men and women to learn from the past and make the polity ideal.
Of choice, because each person has his own choices of making things in life. But if you ask me, I'll say it's not right, because these are the same people that will leave the political party they are into to move to another party, and they'll still do the same thing they were doing in that previous party. They are the ones who are supposed to lead us, so they should do the right thing. If they are based in one party, then they should be in one party, not moving from one party to the other. Then
I don't see it as any way of probably stabilizing the government, which we see right now as maybe not stable, because all these people, all the politicians defecting from one political party to another, are still the same people going to form another party under maybe probably another name, and as a result, all the things that we've experienced in the previous government when they were in the previous party still occurring.
Since 1999, defections from one party to another has been a prominent political feature on the eve of elections. And yet, the socio-economic landscape of the country is still not yet near what it should be.
Now, there have been a multitude of opinions and commentaries emanating since the defection of the former secretary to the Katsina State government, Dr. Mustapha Inuwa, to the opposition party, the PDP. The former secretary to the state government, the current APC administration, for 7 consecutive years before his defection. Abdullahi Ahmadi reports that some political observers in Katsina say this is the worst thing that could happen to a ruling party ahead of elections. The report.
Mustapha Inuwa contested for APC governorship ticket but lost to Dr. Dukku Umar Rada. He left the APC blaming some unpopular politicians in Katsina State for trying to retire him from politics, a situation he described as unacceptable. Mustapha insisted that those behind the decision to block his chances in the APC are opinionated and bent on ensuring that he no longer remain relevant within the state political arena.
Apart from making a lot of insinuations, a lot of bad commentary about us, they engage other people also in making similar bad comments, accusations, and so on about it, including the candidate himself.
However, the Katsina State APC governorship candidate Dukku Umar Rada says his political aspiration loses nothing from the defection of the former SGS to the opposition PDP.
Most of the Nigerian politicians are addressing their own personal interests rather than the interests of the entire people. And this is not something that is new in an era like this one, because this is an era where the political situation is heating up and so many people are changing political parties because they could not meet up their personal interest. But as people are moving from APC to PDP, we are equally receiving thousands of people from PDP to APC. So this is something that is normal.
Though defection is common characteristics in Nigerian politics, political observers say it creates unhealthy situations in the nation's democratic system.
The movement or leaving one party to another is sometimes frequent. We know and we can witness many politicians who are leaving from the ruling party joining opposition, and some are leaving opposition joining the ruling party. That of Dr. Mustapha is one of the surprised. So it was wonders to the state citizens, that the people of Katsina State, to say a person of such personality leaving the party at these situations when election is at close door.
Political watchers said that dynamics of politics in Katsina make it interesting and sophisticated, but politicians must play according to the rules of the game. Abdullahi Ismail Ahmadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
That's a wrap on our reports this morning. We'll take a short breather. When we return, we'll serve you the newspaper headline. Please stay with us.
documenting the Nigerian story.
But in a situation where you find that a look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
Welcome back to Daybreak on Trust TV. We'll now jump straight into the newspaper headlines this morning, and we'll start with Daily Trust newspaper. And of course, it goes with this headline that reads, FG records 5.33 trillion deficit, missed revenue target by 34%. And goes with these riders, say oil revenue target dips by 72.9%. To convert 20 trillion CBN loans to 40-year bond, and subsidy hampering revenue growth, says Finance Minister. Going down the front page now, second Niger Bridge completed, Abuja Kaduna Kano Road 50%, says Fashola. Details of that on page 3. And the belt at the bottom of the front page there. Buhari signs Nigeria Startup Bill into law. Details on page 21. I'll appeal judgment to reaffirm my victory, says Binani. And talking about security now, gunmen killed 23 in Benue village. Details of that on page 6. Moving towards the top of the front page, below the nameplate, brain drain, Nigeria left with 24,000 doctors, says the NMA. Details of that on page 3. NNPC spent 788 billion naira on salaries, forex, entertainment, others. For details of that on page 21. Ripples in APC as Adamu replaces suspended directors. That is on page 37 of the Daily Trust. Now, these are the major headlines on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
We'll move on to the Punch newspaper. This morning with quite a number of offerings on the front page. With the major one is staying with the PDP crisis. Aggrieved NWC members protest exclusion from presidential campaign. You'll find the details of that story on page 2 with the riders. National Women Leader Right protest letter. Vice Chairman Chieftains lament. There is a deliberate attempt to sideline Southerners, claim Bode George. Wike Otom Makinde orders not bigger than party, says pro-IU NWC members. And you'll find very conspicuous the pictures of NEMA training corps members on disaster management on the front pages with some demonstration exercise there. To other stories on the front page, that's a belt there at the top of the paper, which reads Nigerian students dependents contribute £1.9 billion to UK. That's according to a report on page 19. NSAS states fail to compensate victims. Police warn protesters. You'll find the details of that on page 18. FG record over 5 trillion deficit in 8 months. Telcos fumes as FG orders tariff hike reversal. You'll find the details of that on page 17. And moving on, we have Ekiti Speaker dies of cardiac arrest as Governor mourns. Alaba market traders hoodlums clash. One fed dead. You'll find the details of that on page 4 and 5. And Lagos Ibadan Expressway nightmare persists. Motorists demand alternative routes. These are the major headlines on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
Next, we'll take a look at The Nation newspaper, and it sticks with the current theme of the day, talking about the economy. How we will fund 10.78 trillion naira budget deficit by minister. And rider here that says 7.04 trillion naira expected as domestic loans, 1.7 trillion naira from foreign sources, and 1.77 trillion naira multilateral loans. Going down the front page now, and there's also a breakdown of the sectorial votes getting. We have defense 2.74 trillion, education 2.05 trillion, health 1.58 trillion, infrastructure 998 billion, and poverty reduction 7.56 billion naira. Going down the front of the bottom of the front page now, towards that, Fashola explains Lagos-Ibadan Expressway delay and second Niger Bridge ready. At the very bottom of the front page there, Kwara government, ex-governor Ahmed clash over collapsed 3.7 billion naira underpass bridges. Going towards the top of the front page now, IPOB, federal government appeals judgment freeing Kanu. And at the very top of the front page has these belts where Buhari heads APC Presidential Campaign Council. Details of that on page 8. Nigeria loses 9,000 doctors to UK, US, Canada in 2 years. Details of that on page 8 as well. Ekiti Speaker dies at 66. Reps Committee OK sale of Polaris Bank, and President signs startup bill. Details of those stories are on page 3 and 7. Now, these are the major headlines on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
And moving on now to This Nigeria, one of the newest members of the newspaper family in Nigeria. We have the major headline: Stop harassing youth with laptops. Buhari warns as a signs startup bill. Science startup bill as FG sets up 10 billion funds for young innovators. Microsoft to train 5 million Nigerians. These are all fallouts of the president's signing of the startup bill yesterday. And we also have the very conspicuous picture with the Minister of Works and that of Information, as well as Minister of Housing, Umar El Yaqub, at the unveiling of the PNB's Scorecard 2015 to 2023 in Abuja yesterday. Another story of interest on the front page, it's Senate probe Niger Delta Affairs Minister over alleged 480 billion naira project. Abba Kyari, cocaine came from Ethiopia, says witness. You'll find the details of that on page 24. To other stories, 2023, Wike to chair 350-member Rivers PDP campaign council. Ekiti Speaker Afuye dies of cardiac arrest. And just beside the nameplate, we have fuel subsidy to Gulf 3.3 trillion in 2023 as debt profile hit $102 billion. These are the major offerings on the front page of This Nigeria.
We'll take a look at First News newspaper next, and it carries this major headline on the front page. Alleged plots to siphon NDDC's 480 billion naira. Senate summons minister. And has a rider, petition accuses Niger Delta minister of perfecting plans to collect money under guise it will be spent on social projects. Going down towards the bottom of the front page, NLNG force majeure, Nigerians may pay more for cooking gas. And that is a headline on the front page of the First News newspaper. Indiomu hails first PhD graduate of PAP's scholarship program. And towards the bottom, at the bottom of the front page here, we have a belt. We have completed second Niger bridge, says Fashola. Buhari signs startup bill into law. 15 perish in Sokoto boat mishap. And switching over to politics, it says 2023, why I'll have worked for Peter Obi, says Autumn. Ekiti Assembly Speaker Afuye dies of cardiac arrest. Now moving towards the top of the front page there, we know the nameplate. APC releases final presidential campaign list, adds new names. I'll expose those behind CBN's seizure of Abia Benue loans, says Wike. And a rider here that says alleges facility surreptitiously stopped to punish Ikpeazu, Autumn, for being loyal to him. Suspend campaigns, let's help fraud victims, Obi urges Tinubu and Atiku. And Konua Namda Asu, free to go to court, says Ngige. FG allocates 3.36 trillion naira for fuel subsidy in 2023 as debt profile rises to $102 billion. And federal government approves 470 billion naira for university revitalization, review of teachers' salaries. At the very top of the front page there, flood approach by Alsa Assembly for special funds. Iworisu Markson tells Governor Diri. And federal government orders telcos to reverse 10% hike in calls and data tariffs. Now, these are the major stories on the front page of the First News newspaper this morning.
And away from the conventional paper to a now more business niche, Business Day newspaper, we have there as the major story, flood raises questions over Nigeria Ecological Fund. And you have there photographs of the Zenith Bank MD receiving the World Best Bank Award 2022, I think in Washington, D.C. Recently. Explainer, how Nigeria's imports guard against cyber attack. That will be interesting. Key highlights of Startup Act signed by Buhari. You want that, you turn to page 21 of Business Day. And we have a very interesting report also there on the front page. Banks caught PTA without clear CBN directive. This will be interesting to know. And inflation, IMF advises Nigeria's orders on monetary tightening. These are the major headlines on the front page of Business Day.
Yes, and we wrap up a cursory look at the headlines this morning. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll go deep into the analysis of those headlines. Do stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. It's that time of the program where we bring you deep insight into the issues that made it to the front page of the major newspapers in the country. And we have, as usual, in the studio with us to do justice to the front pages, the editor-in-chief of Dateline newspaper, Malan Nasrullah, in the studio with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thanks for making it to the studio as always.
Thank you. Good morning.
We appreciate the amount of sacrifice that goes into your appearing here. Editor-in-chief are really very busy people. Yeah. A number of activities on the polity yesterday, but more interestingly is the budget explainer that is coming a couple of days after the president's presentation at the National Assembly. And at that conversation yesterday, the finance minister revealed quite a number of things that I think should worry every discerning Nigerian, especially, the deficit that just keeps spiraling. And yesterday she was telling us we have even overshot the mark, following our own projection with regards to debt service. She talked about plans to convert the free cash they sort of got from the CBN to a 40-year loan. I feel it's a way of just spreading it out of their books completely. And she confessed that subsidy was a major, the payment of subsidy was a major hamper for revenue growth, especially given that the NNPC is not remitting anything to the post right now. What do you make of some of the revelations that came out of that explainer yesterday?
Well, I think this is something that many Nigerians actually know, even without the minister coming out to say it. But now that she's coming out to say it, it's like, making it official so that maybe all the stakeholders can use it to decide what they do going ahead. But what I find confusing or unusual rather is the fact that if you look at the front page of Daily Trust, we have a story of NNPC, spending 788 billion naira on salaries, forex, entertainment. And this is an institution that has not been, contributing to the public pulse. And they are spending this huge amount. And then here we are battling to even get the money that we will be spending because we have not been making enough from our revenue sources. Even by the minister's account, we are like only 66 or so percent, and we have only 4 months to go. That's for the 2022 to actually come to an end. And then here we are already talking about the fact that we have 5.3 trillion deficit. So only God knows what will happen between now and the end of there.
Some of the newspapers actually went further to give a breakdown of how this deficit was going to be funded. The Nation newspaper actually has this, and it says we have 7.04 trillion naira, which is going to be sourced domestically. That's domestic loans, and 1.7 trillion naira from foreign sources, and 1.7 trillion naira from multilateral loans. Now, that is something that has become synonymous with this government, most especially recently. We borrow, and a while back it was something a bit unusual because there's some fanfare even associated with government going to receive loans from other places and other sources, but now it has become so commonplace. How good or bad is that for our economy?
Well, the lenders are also paying attention to the developments in the country. They are saying right now we are actually battling to even service the debts that we already have. And this will, go a long way in helping them to decide whether they will even give us the amount that we're looking for. Because right now what we are projecting is to be able to get it, maybe from external sources and then locally. Locally, maybe some people may want to surrender what they have because there are so many people that actually have not been using their bank balance if you go by the statistics that the official sources are actually churning out. But like you said, the lenders are paying attention, and it will certainly affect our ability to even source the loans, because what have we been doing with all the amounts that we have been receiving? We have not been able to slash down on, to cut down on our unnecessary spendings, if you like. Recently, if you look at South Africa, the president had to reverse a policy that was giving ministers free electricity and other perks, and because the people actually complained, he had to reverse that. I think it's high time for Nigeria also to begin to look inwards. What our officials are going away with, honestly, they can do with much less. And I think the government should pay attention to that.
Talking about paying attention, like you rightly mentioned, it appears that the government sources do everything possible to accommodate their comforts in these documents every other year. And every time we talk about budget cuts, they go to things that don't impact sufficiently on the size of our budget. And one thing that should worry people is when the government said they will borrow 60% from the local sources. That would mean government competing for funds with private businesses who themselves are finding it extremely difficult to borrow abroad because of the same government sovereign rating, of its ballooning response. Because at the end of the day, all payments will be made out of our external reserves. How do we even begin to manage this delicate balance between allowing private sector? Because once the government is on the table, they know it's free money. They don't have to do any due diligence. The worst case is government will print extra naira and pay back. How do we balance allowing the private sector to breed and find the fundings they need to grow versus funding government public expenditures in the light of this revelation?
Well, you can use the what you see to actually determine what action you should take. Right now, if you look at all the private institutions that we have, those that are actually contributing to the economy in a major way, like all the foreign airlines, for instance, if you look at it, they find it difficult to ever repatriate the money that they make. And here you are coming, like you said, trying to compete with them for the little resources that is available in the country. Honestly, it's going to affect so many businesses. Already, I saw a report, was it yesterday or so, saying that so many banks are actually casualizing some of their workers. Some are actually sacking them outright. And then what do they do in return? They end up hiring people that they pay pittance, and then this cannot in any way help our economy. So Nigeria should pay attention. What is happening actually is capable of leaving us with negative growth, and this shouldn't be what we are doing at the moment.
All right, so one of the stories that actually made rounds today was the signing of the startup bill into law by the president. How significant do you feel that will be, considering the kind of situation our economy is right now? How significant do you think it will be in a positive way?
Well, I think now it's clear to all those who are already in the sector and those who are like planning to go into it. There is now a clear-cut policy by the government. There is a law to back so many things, because even the president was actually saying that the security agents,
should not harass people
harassing
with
people with laptops. Because sometimes when they see you with laptop, the first thing that comes to their mind is probably internet fraud and what have you. But that shouldn't be the case. A lot of things are actually happening. So many things. If you look at so many like apps that are now making waves, so many Nigerians are behind it. So many Nigerians actually need this law to be able to go forward and strengthen what they have already started. And the fact that they require like all the startups, to register as such, and then to be able to access some money, I think it's a very good initiative.
Because on page 21 of Daily Trust, we actually have it that the federal government has set aside 10 billion naira. That's investment for young innovators to actually help with the startup.
So this is a very good initiative, because going forward, like we all know, government alone cannot provide jobs for the people. The best way to go is actually to help and encourage our entrepreneurs and what have you, for them to be able to like key in and be able to take some of the pressure off the government in providing jobs, and then be able to remain self-reliant without necessary recourse to the government.
A lot of interesting activities in our polity this morning. I hope we find the time to touch at least on a number of very interesting, but we would be carpeting, if that's the right word. I don't know if that the political balance have completely hijacked the use of the word Chris carpeting. But I find this story on Business Day, if our producers will share the front pages of Business Day with our viewers at home, I find the major story interesting. Flood raised questions over Nigeria's ecological fund. We set up that fund to be able to, in the face of revelations over 10, 15, 20 years ago that climate change is imminent, these are the kind of disasters that will become prone to. But it appears that fund has been reduced to providing mats and biscuits and buckets to people after they have been displaced, rather than using a contingent part of the fund to actually fight or put infrastructures in place that will prevent the magnitude of disaster that we have seen between 2012 and today, whether it is landslides, off-seasons, or it is the opening of the Labdo Dam when there are no disasters that wash off farmlands from Adamawa to Taraba. Do we seem to have completely neglected the laudable objectives of setting up that ecological fund?
Well, I think so, because somehow the ecological fund has now been politicized. For states to even access it, sometimes you have to be in the good books of the authorities. And then when you succeed in getting it, what do you do with it? So many state governments have actually been using it as free money, and they are not like using it to do what they are supposed to do with it. If you look at, sometimes when we talk about ecological fund, actually the first thing that comes to mind for so many people is all this environmental degradation and what have you. But floods are also part of it. So now that we are being challenged by floods, where are the ecological funds? This is the right time for us to actually apply them, to deploy them to do what is necessary. You even mentioned providing mats, biscuits, and what have you. That's when the disaster happens. In the absence of that disaster, nothing will happen. So you won't even see anything. And then the money will not be there.
Will be depleted.
So where are we taking all the money to? Like I said, so many people are actually treating it as free money. We don't use it to actually prepare for the rainy day, which will come in any case. And so the National Assembly, the lawmakers, should ask questions. Where are we taking all this money to? Because they have a responsibility to actually do that. I don't want to be one of those who think they're also part of the issue. Once they are settled, they look the other way. I don't want to believe that. This is a responsibility for them to do, to actually follow the money and see where they are being used.
Well, sometimes the major cause for concern, I think, I actually have is we had incidents like this in 2012. Something like this happened. There was a lot of rancor about it. We had discussions like this about what happened in 2012. In the aftermath of that, we're going to probe this, we're going to probe that. This is what we need to do, this is what we need to do. Unfortunately, nothing was done. At the beginning of this season, NIMET issued a warning that there could be a flood. And we all waited for it to happen. We knew it was coming, and we still waited for it to happen. And the most worrying part of the situation is we keep saying that it was Cameroon opened the Lagdo Dam and all that. But NIMET now is telling us that it was actually rainfall, the amount of rainfall that we had, that is what caused the flood. That is the major contributor to the flood. So my question now is, how different is this situation from that of 2012? Yeah, this is quite worse than 2012. But we did have something like this in 2012 and nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. Can we expect something different now?
Well, probably not. Like so many people are saying, we are lucky in this part of the world that we have fewer natural disasters. But in return, we have not only man-made disasters, our own disasters are actually coming in the form of our leaders, because they fail to do the right thing. Like you said, what happened in 2012 should have given us the impetus, should have given us the opportunity to prepare. That's if we have not been doing that. But it happened, and then we just pretended as if nothing happened. And then now that we are faced with a situation that is almost similar, we are nowhere to be, we are not doing what we are supposed to do because we have not been planning. We have not been using all the indices, that are being churned out by our own agencies to be able to plan for the future. Then of what value are all these statistics and what have you that we keep bombarding the newspapers with?
Unfortunately, I think it was Professor Epiphany Azingi, I recall, that said if you have a certificate and you don't apply it, it's as good as not having this. You are not different from the illiterate anyways. It's painful. We are now seeing fresh revelations from NEMA that over 4,000, in fact 4,885 Ogun houses have been submerged. And in that same revelation, the federal government absolves Cameroon, which pays credence to what Ibrahim said. But moving away slightly from that story, it's another headline which we missed on the front pages of The Punch. If our producers can share that front page with our viewers at home, just by beside the nameplates, we have this story on page 17. Kogi drags Dangote to court over Obajana ownership. I would like to get your thoughts on this, not necessarily as it concerns Obajana, but we have been seeing what is now becoming a recurring decimal in Kogi State, taking on multinationals over very controversial issues. It appears the Kogi State government is sort of self-indicting because it comes up with half records and then these people release a record that seems to counter your position. What sense do you make of what has become a bolekaja, if you know that word, in Lagos, kind of approach between a civil authority and a registered business in a state? What do you make of all of this, what appears like hostility between the two?
Well, and if you look at it, we keep talking about attracting foreign investors, to come and invest in Nigeria so that Nigeria will benefit. But right now, even the ones that we have locally, we keep mouthing ease of doing business and what have you. But then here you are, a constituted authority actually becoming the stumbling block for somebody to be able to do his business. And this business, if you know the amount of people that are actually employed, that are having their means of livelihood from this same plant that you are now trying to frustrate, honestly, maybe the government will have a change of mind. But I respect what the federal government did, that's the Security Council, when they came up with the fact that no, the plant should be open, and then the maybe negotiation should continue. Because right now we cannot do with more unemployed people. You know,
when the prices of cement rising
exactly.
Yes.
And then see what happened, because they are also related. The Kogi State House of Assembly summoned
the Boa.
Exactly, concerning.
And then what did he do in return? He said, okay,
take your
I'm
land.
no longer interested in it. Because one, there is a security challenge there, and then our feasibility studies even showed that the place. So what are you like telling the world? That's why I said we keep saying that we want to attract foreign investors, and then the ones that we already have here within are finding it difficult. Are finding it difficult to do their business. So I think people should find a way of reaching out to the Kogi State Governor. There is nothing on this earth that cannot be settled, you know, on the tables of negotiation. But all this taking vigilantes today, you know, taking non-state actors, honestly, it doesn't speak well of.
I hope we don't get to a level, because we live in a very funny country, and things can almost immediately take an ethnic line. I hope we don't get to a point where states will begin to feel like you are targeting our sons and daughters who have invested in your place. We will now begin to you know, at the time, we saw that in our polity when state governors started sacking non-indigens in their books, a number that is almost negligible. And the state started repatriating by also taking out their citizens. So I hope we don't degenerate to that level where the state will begin to say, okay, if you begin to target our own sons and daughters doing business, let us also look for your businesses and hit them back. Like you rightly mentioned, as a people and as a country, we will be the worst hit. These guys can afford to shut down this business and live well for the rest of their natural life.
Exactly.
Looking at the inside page on Daily Trust, which is a tradition we'll be bringing you regularly going forward, so that sometimes they accuse editors like him of assigning relevance to certain stories that may not necessarily be what the readers at home may be interested in. And so we are now self-rightening consciously by also looking into the inside pages, just to also give you the impression that whatever the page, the issues are important, because whatever makes it to the paper generally is just about 20% of the volume of materials that is received in the news. So sieving is actually a difficult responsibility, and they should be forgiven. But we are looking at letters to the editor. You'll find that on page 18 of Daily Trust. And there is a major concern here, which borders on food security. And the writer is saying food security is a major problem in Nigeria. The last time it was the insurgency that stopped farmers from accessing their lands and all. The government has done creditably well by pushing back on the insurgency. But just about when we should be recovering, now for the flood has ravaged most of it, should we be worried, you know, in the face of inflation and all, about food security and what it portends for Nigerians in the coming season?
Certainly, we should be worried. You know, the impact may not be felt right now. Maybe it will take some months because we are supposed to have silos, you know, where we keep grains for the rainy day and things like that. But most of these silos, if you go, they're empty. There is nothing in there. So, like the writer said, honestly, the government should pay attention to that, because when you don't have what to eat, that's the recipe
For disaster.
For disaster, because you can do whatever just to be able to have what to eat. That's why if you go to our markets and see some of the things that people actually steal, you will know that this is actually, as a result of hunger and then maybe lack. Certainly not because they want to make money. Because how do you go to the shop of maybe someone, and then before you know it, you know when he looks one way and then you pick a biscuit or something.
Or a loaf of bread.
That shows you that honestly people are finding it difficult to even get what to eat. And then with flood and then the insurgency, I think this is a deadly combination, and the government should pay attention.
Well, with the culture that we actually have, which is something that we alluded to when we were talking about the flood. I mean, like, we saw it coming, we didn't do anything. We're seeing this coming now. What should we do?
Well, the government, like I said, we are having silos all over the place, for us to be saving grains and other food items.
But unfortunately, we said most of these silos are empty.
So that's what I am actually trying to say. We need to find a way of restocking them, and then also helping the people, because so many people have now been affected to the extent that they may not be able to recover on their own. So the government should actually come in to see how they can help our smallholder farmers, all the people that are actually living at the margins, to be able to sustain their lives.
We are wrapping or winding down. So away from some of the issues around the polity, the Daily Trust front page also has a story on how brain drain Nigeria is left to 24,000 doctors. I think in another paper we reviewed, it actually captured that we had lost about 6,000 or 7,000. 9,000 doctors. And in the face of that, I think it's a current minister that said we have too many doctors, some should even take to tailoring. And even though when we show up at the public hospitals, we seldom have opportunities to see these doctors, because the number of doctors, the ratio per citizen it's crazily underwhelming, and we're losing some of this finance hands. Are we really, has it come to a point where we seem to realize how much damage we are inflicting on ourselves? Because some of these doctors even go to countries where they take less than the conditions of service that are far less than, they live here with 12, 13 years of work experience, and they show up there and they are willing to take anything just to get away. Do we really understand that we are self-destructing at all as a country and as a people?
Well, the worst thing that can actually happen to a man is to be unsure of his fate. So many of our doctors actually don't know what the government will do the next minute. So they find it easy to relocate abroad, where they find some stability.
And predictability.
Because recently, I think on a channel called TLC, a Nigerian doctor was shown. I think he's a dermatologist, if I can still remember. Dr. Sanusi Umar, he's been celebrated all over the place. But here we are, even the few ones that we have, we are not doing what we are supposed to do with them. See what happened during the COVID-19 problem.
Countries sending in private jets.
Our people couldn't even travel out, including our leaders. I thought they would have used that opportunity to be able to do what is right within the country, so that anytime we are faced with
pandemic of such
we can do all the things that we want to do locally without feeling the need to go outside. But no, it has happened, and then we are treating it as if it never happened. And sometimes we will pay huge amount of money to go to Dubai, to go to
India.
Thailand, India, and then before you know it, you will be treated by a Nigerian doctor there. So what does that tell you? If you had done your homework, probably he would have been treating you somewhere in Guarimpa, or,
been way cheaper for you.
Way cheaper, and even the country will have earned more, because see Cuba. Cuba is not like one of the richest countries you have in the world, but when it comes to the issue of healthcare, they are a force to reckon with.
True.
And that couldn't have happened by accident. It's because the leaders actually planned it to be like that. So our own leaders should also learn to be able to treat our doctors right, and then make it possible, make the atmosphere conducive for them to be able to do their work without necessarily feeling the pressure to relocate abroad.
What an interesting perspective there. We hope our leaders are listening, and not just listening. We hope that we begin to take steps because the signs are already there that we are heading towards doomsday. It's May Day already. I hope we are able to salvage what is left of these 24,000, because I'm sure a number of them would have tried. They are probably on the waiting list to join the other 9,000. That's the much that we can bring to you on the analysis of the newspaper headline, and this time, if you like, a number of stories from the inside pages. We want to thank you for finding time to be here and for sharing with us those delightful insights on the issues that made the front line. Thank you once again. We will take a short breather and we would return at the top of the hour to serve you more from Daybreak. Please stay with us.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
That's great.
Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to Daybreak on Trust Television. It's 8 a.m. and I am Sunday Michael Ogun.
It is 8 a.m., top of the hour on Daybreak. This is I Am Ibrahim Yusuf.
The show has kicked up quite nicely today with a myriad of conversations around the issues that made the front pages. Now we'll be looking at the news headline for the hour. 4,885 households ravaged by flood in Ogun.
Yes, another headline that we have this morning is refusal to pay rented crowd triggered violence at Atiku's rally, says APC.
Assault. You have a case to answer, Senate panel tells CCT boss.
And now for the details. The National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, says over 4,000 households have been ravaged by the recent flood incidents in Ogun State. The Director General of NEMA, Mustafa Ahmed, disclosed this in Abeokuta during the presentation of relief materials to the state government for distribution to the victims across the state. Ahmed, who was represented by the Director of Special Duties, Dr. Bandele Onimode, said the development has resulted in loss of lives, human displacement, loss of means of livelihood, and socio-economic dislocation. Ahmed noted that several states of the Federation, including Ogun, had suffered widespread flood disasters in the past few weeks.
Moving on to politics, the ruling All Progressive Congress, APC, has blamed the People Democratic Party, PDP, for the violence which broke out at the rally of the party presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar in Kaduna on Monday. Reacting to the incident in a statement issued on Wednesday, National Publicity Secretary of the ruling party, Felix Moka, described the fallout at the rally as self-inflicted. According to him, the incident was simply a matter of a rented crowd that went irate when the party's rent-a-crowd managers disappeared with funds meant to pay for the rented crowd.
And to legislative matters now, where the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions has reopened a petition leveled against the chairman of the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Mr. Eladi Umar, over alleged assault of a security guard, Mr. Clement Sagwak. Briefing newsmen on Wednesday on the case, the chairman of the Senate Committee, Senator Ayo Akinye-Lure, said the panel reopened the case against Umar after the court's judgment. The CCT chairman had told the committee through his lawyers that he was already in court to stop the investigation. But the court gave a declarative judgment on the matter, saying the Senate had the locus standi to proceed with the case. Sagwak had petitioned the Senate, alleging that he was assaulted by Mr. Umar and a policeman attached to him after he informed him, that is Umar, that his car was wrongly parked at Banex Plaza, Wuse 2, Abuja on March 29, 2021.
And moving on to some of our reports this morning, President Muhammadu Buhari has signed the Nigeria Startup Bill 2022 into law to create an enabling environment for the establishment, development, and operations of startups in the country. The law, which holds huge benefit for Nigerian economy, adopts an approach to allowing startups to identify business challenges and voice them out. Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Professor Issa Pantami, announced this on Wednesday after a meeting with the President at the State House in Abuja. The report.
The Nigeria Startup Act 2022 is a joint initiative by Nigeria's tech startup ecosystem and the Presidency to harness the potential of Nigeria's digital economy through co-created regulations. The Startup Bill, which was passed on July 20, 2022 and signed on Wednesday, is expected to ensure that Nigeria's laws and regulations are clear and planned in such a way that they work for the tech ecosystem. Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, is of the view that the Act will consolidate the growth of the digital economy.
Startup law is just maybe young innovators that come up with some super ideas that can bring positive change to the world. They come up with a proposed solution that will resolve or solve a complex problem. So that is what we call startup. Usually you will see their market value is not even up to 10 million in some cases. So in that situation, to grow, they need government patronage, they need government intervention, and they need government incentives and tax holiday.
The minister dares to boast that the Startup Bill will experience the same kind of success that has been recorded in other spheres of the digital economy, including the National Identity Management Commission.
NIMSI was established in 2007, 15 years ago. The total number of enrollment in NIMSI Act from 2007, to 2020 October, when Mr. President directed me to supervise NIMSI, within 15 years, the whole database was 39 million. In spite of many billions spent for the enrollment, and many people were detained because of corrupt practices in mismanaging the fund. From October 2020 to October 2022, without any intervention from government, I increased the database from 39 million to more than 90 million today. We enrolled more than 51 million users in less than 2 years, while we inherited only 39 in 15 years.
The communication and digital economy sector has so far contributed 40% to the country's gross domestic product in 2022. It is expected that the newly signed act will quicken the startup ecosystem in Nigeria, especially if it is adopted by all states in the country. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Now, the need for prudence in public finance management has again been stressed. Participants at the end of a 3-day workshop on the development of the Adamawa State Budget Manual have advocated for the inclusiveness, accountability, transparency and effectiveness towards achieving the goals. Now, Trust TV's Silas Lower reports that citizen engagement, gender, social inclusion and conflict sensitivity in budget process also form part of the discussion. His report.
Lack or minimum inclusiveness, accountability, transparency and effectiveness in the implementation of budget have negatively affected developmental targets of Nigerian states. Participants said the entire budget cycle, from the medium-term expenditure framework process to the annual budget preparation, review, approval, and execution, must be designed to ensure robust reforms that will directly improve service delivery to citizens.
Whatever we are making a budget, we can make it easy for the states. We cannot overbudget ourselves. We have to now see what is coming from the center, that is through federation allocations, and what are we gaining internally. So based on that, the budget process will be fine, and everybody will take home what he wants. I mean the citizens out there. The dividend of democracy will be flourished all over the place.
You cannot have a budget without a sustainability analysis. What we do at the DMO is to give the government, a go-ahead whether it is sustainable or not. And when you look at Adamawa State and its profile, you will find out that Adamawa is sustainable, highly sustainable.
They also suggested the reforms to focus on the income side of public finance, improving internally generated revenue with corresponding social impact and engaging relevant stakeholders.
Well, I want each and every person to come together on the same table and see how we have a reliable budget. We don't want a situation where a budget will be deficit. We want everybody, the citizens, we want the CSOs and also the government to come together and have a work plan for the people of the state.
So this time around, the reverse is the case. We are involving citizens to come and understand where we are going. This is the little finances that we have on hand, and this is how we can move. We can invest. So this kind of manual will give us a package.
The consensus here is that need for improvement of fiscal transparency and accountability, as well as increased efficiency in public finance management, cannot be overemphasized. From Yola, Salihu Lawan, Trust TV News.
Moving on, a coalition of activist groups under the aegis of the NSAS United has reiterated its commitment to stand against any form of injustice on victims of the NSAS protests that rocked the country in 2020. The group made the call at a press briefing on Wednesday in Lagos as part of activities marking the second anniversary of the NSAS protest that took place on the 20th of October 2020. Organizers urged the federal government to revisit the 5-for-5 demand of the NSAS protesters and implement the panel report. Several activities have been held in some parts of the country, with some planning a peaceful march at the Lekki toll gate to commemorate the day.
Youths, whichever way you have gone to, one good thing that I like about the current dispositions that at least the youths are now more political than before. We may be quarreling about which political way somebody has gone. I've seen Mr. Folari has gone to Young Progressive Party, and I promised publicly that yes, publicly that we will support him. The important thing that people should be political. People should be political before we are political. People say, I just want to make it or I want to japa. That is the two options, the Nigerian youths. But you have to participate and try to hold government to account. That is the important thing about this Sarasoke thing. And we must never lose hope.
We found ourselves outside the hospital. There was no vehicle. We trekked about where they discharged about, let me remember, they discharged about 7 to 6 of us. We could not walk. Some they scattered. The bullet teared their legs, so they could not walk. We trekked from Marina General Hospital down to the toll gate when the shooting is still going on for us to be safe. So after trekking there, so we now met some protesters. They now took us to somewhere, a church at Lekki Phase 1. So we were there for 1 week. From there, somebody came to help us. We've been in the safe house for like 3 to 2 months.
The panel recommendations to be met, and all the dead bodies, where are they? Where did they bury them? It was somewhere they buried them now. All the body, the panel report listed up to like 40 something names, and even the pathologists, Lagos State pathologists, came to the panel and said there were 99 bodies in the mortuary. Where are the bodies? So there are so many questions that I need answer. Panel recommendations to be met, and all the dead bodies, where are they? Where did they bury them? It was somewhere they buried them now. All the body, the panel report listed up to like 40 something names, and even the pathologists, Lagos State pathologists, came to the panel and said there were 99 bodies in the mortuary. Where are the bodies? So there are so many questions that I need answers.
We found ourselves outside the hospital. There was no vehicle. We trekked about where they discharged about, let me remember, they discharged about 7 to 6 of us. We could not walk. Some they scattered. The bullet teared their legs, so they could not walk. We trekked from Marina General Hospital down to the toll gate when the shooting is still going on for us to be safe. So after trekking there, so we now met some protesters. They now took us to somewhere, a church at Lekki Phase 1. So we were there for 1 week. From there, somebody came to help us. We've been in the safe house for like 3 to 2 months.
All right, and now that's a wrap on the headlines and reports for this hour. It's still daybreak on Trust TV. We'll take a short break, and after that, we'll go into the main issues of discussion for the day. Do stay with us.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Daybreak on Trust Television. Before we go into the next conversation, I was just having a brainwave, and I was telling Ibrahim that I think somehow we will begin to think of how to have live guests. You need to hear the things we say behind the cameras that you would never be able to hear at the other end. But make it a point of duty to be one of our guests one of these days. You will enjoy the extra conversation behind the scene. It's very, very interesting. Moving on to our first discussions this morning, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, has said that the states in the north central and southeastern zones of Nigeria would brace up for more flooding. The Director General of NIMET, Professor Mansur Bako Matazu, stated this on the sidelines of the ongoing Hydrometeorological Status and Outlook Systems, HydroSUS, in Abuja on Tuesday. The Director General, while speaking on the current flood impact across the country, said though flooding as a result of rainfall may have reached its peak, flooding as a result of opening up of dams and other water holding facilities will still affect states in the north central and southeast. There may not be an end in sight soon. We are joined now in the studio by the Chief Meteorologist and Executive Assistant to the Director General of NIMET, Mr. James Ijampe Adamu. I'm not sure how I did with the second name, but it's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Looking at Mr. Adamu, you clearly know that he has done his feasibility forecast and he's looking well dressed, knowing fully well that the rains would not come down on him on his way to the studio this morning. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Where do we start? It's every day we wake up, it is one state under the water. A couple of weeks ago, it was supplies not being able to reach Abuja and other contingent states because of the situation in Lokoja and the unpassable condition of the Lagos-Jeba axis. And it appeared we were completely out of ideas on what to do. We were just praying and every day hoping that when we wake up, the water levels will recede so that supply chains can be restored. And then suddenly, the southern states, one day it is Rivers, the next day it is Bayelsa asking staffs not to come to work. We know that the predictions were there by NIMET, and we are now hearing that the situation could get worse. Can you bring us to speed with what else do you think we need to be prepared for right now in the light of this your recent revelations?
Thank you so much. The whole concept of forecasting is for early preparation and early action. And that is why during the public presentation of the seasonal climate prediction by the Honorable Minister, Senator Hadi Sirika, it was made clear in February that this year we're going to experience above normal rainfall. In the month of August, the DG, Professor Mansur Bako Matazu, gave an update that we are going to experience much more above normal rainfall. And from records, I'm just trying to take you through records. Yes. We've noticed that states like Jigawa recorded 109% above the normal rainfall they experienced in a year as at September ending. Same for Sokoto, surprisingly, 185% above their normal. Sokoto normally they record 600, at most 700. This year they have recorded 1,500 millimeters of rainfall. Wow. That is much. And considering the hydrological flow, everything from Sokoto, Borno, has to flow down to the Atlantic Ocean. So you have the dam release, you have the hydraulic flow of water coming down, and that is why what we're experiencing in the central and the southern, including the coastal state now, is the rainfall accumulation in those states, the hydraulic flow, and the opening of dams. Now, what do we do? Infrastructure. You find out that even developed countries like the US, when they have hurricane, you have destruction, but the time it takes for this water to recede, to drain to it's because they have this very good infrastructure. I'm sure we need to start looking towards that in terms of our design. For example, the Lokoja, the connection between the north and the south. Now we should be thinking of a mega structure there because the flood are here to stay. How do we take up this, elevate the road network in such a way that even the flood water comes, just like you have big bridges, even like the Second Niger Bridge. We should be thinking along that line. It might be very expensive because if you lose communication, we know the economic toll on individuals in and around the northern central state where fuel is no longer luxury. You have to queue to get fuel, and it's because of this disconnection. And you find out that foodstuff going to the south, find a lot of economic loss. We're not looking at, you see cows in trailers dying, and they are slaughtering them right on the road. Not to talk about perishable fruits and a lot of economic loss, which I felt sorry for those that have been impacted. Then looking at the economy, some major companies are already declaring force majeure, which is really as a result of climate extremes. So we need to look at our designs. Experts need to come down, look at our designs of our structures, our waterways, our channels, so that we have to learn how to adapt and see that the effect of this flood are being mitigated.
All right, so most of these things you're actually talking about seem to be like long-term things. We had that time, I think, between 2012 and now, because 2012 happened to be the last major flooding incident that we had, and lots of discussions were held. Unfortunately, nothing happened between that time and now. I keep coming back to this whenever we discuss this flood issue. We saw it coming. NIMET saw it coming, and it told everybody. What could we have done from the time that NIMET made this prediction that this was going to happen? What could we have done in that time, that's February, until when the rains came? Was there anything that we could have done to have minimized the effect of this flood?
I think the information getting down to the rural populace, people that are affected, loss of lives, houses, and the rest, information is power. Moving people away from the floodplain and the rest may have reduced the impact on individuals in terms of life lost and the rest. In terms of the environment, we saw what happened in Kano State after the flood. That's when they now said, okay, we start taking off structures on the waterways. A lot of both private and public infrastructures, you find some of them on these waterways. So if you have public structures there, so individuals, when you start taking out public structures out of waterway, then you can enforce on private structures and individual structures. So we need to clear our waterways so that these waters we always look for the way down. And we need to start looking at probably our rivers need to be drenched because they've been silted over some time. If you drench it, it's capacity to take more water. Though you may say it's long term, but we need to do some of those things because just like I said, the impact of extreme weather events, just like hurricane in the US, they have the best structures, but we find there are impacts. However, the time that it takes for this water, the recovery. So our recovery plan, we need to look at it. We need to look at it and redesign our recovery plan. We need to sit down together. And as at this September, we were working at the federal government level. I think we work as a team. NIMET, NISA, the Space, NASDA, and NEMA. We had looked at this. We have calculated the time the flood would get to Lokoja. We had calculated when it would get to Anambra and when it would get to Benue. That's the best we can do in terms of science. But we need the buy-in of the state government. Key is our local governments. We need the buy-in of the local government because the people are closer to the local government in terms of information, in terms of infrastructure.
When you look at what had happened, one way or the other, if you are not directly impacted, you are affected by the contagious effect, the cost of food prices. I mean, today in the Federal Capital Territory, you can't simply drive into a civilian station and buy your fuel because of what had happened in Lokoja, and the impact continued to bite heavily of residents here. I mean, buying 10 liters for as much as 4,000 naira, that barely takes you from here to anywhere. But what was surprising to me and a number of Nigerians was, despite these alerts, despite these calculations available to state governments, when it happened, it felt like a moment of epiphany for them. It was like they just arrived at a scene and suddenly discovered that it was unworkable. Now, you said something that was crucial to me, that you seem to have done the best you can at the federal level. It appears our politicians at the state are more concerned about 2023 than anything that could distract them. And this is not a political question, really. My concern really is, what more can we do to sort of create a dual information line? Recently in the US, I think I've had cause to mention this, they have the Amber Alert. So a car is stolen, you didn't even know anything is happening. You get a text message saying, XYZ car with this color and this had just been snatched, and there's even a baby on board.
Sure.
Along this place, if you are within proximity and have certain anything, send an alert to this number, you know. I'm not sure where that comes from, but I spent about 4 days in the States and I had tons. That was me roaming my number, not even the US line. I got tons of those messages, putting me on the alert that I could also be in danger should I be around this set of persons. I'm hoping that we could see a collaboration between these agencies you've mentioned and the agencies in the telco space, where they could make this kind of infrastructure freely available, so that those kind of warning signs, especially the ones that says, what time will you get to Benue? What time will you get to Kogi? Which, I mean, maybe we could expand it into as much as, if you stay in Vandekia, please, this is the moment to leave. And once somebody gets that kind of alert 2-3 times in a day, it could trigger something to move away, because the concern for ordinary Nigerian is a struggle between life and livelihood. Move away to where? To what? We don't have emergency camps. Even those who are displaced by internal crisis are struggling to survive. So is there something we could do to further stretch what you could do to make information available directly to these people, other than just waiting for a responsive state government to complement your effort?
Well, we have to start somewhere. And just as you said, I've experienced such, I mean, the media has a big role to play. In the US, I was there some times back, and when you have such major extreme, no matter the network you're watching,
you're getting an alert.
And it's an alert. No matter the channel you're on TV, it gives you a weather alert system. So also, I believe the radio, I didn't use the radio, and the telcos, as you say. So we need a buy-in. And what happened this year, after the Kotonkarfe Lokoja, I just realized that we needed more stakeholders
on board.
If we had invited the National Union of Road Transport Workers to show them that these are the likely impact, probably movement of goods and services to the north and the south.
It probably wouldn't have been cut off.
Probably something would have been done. That was my own thinking, because I had to think deep, what next? Because after, in 2012, I was part of the team that gave the early warning. Then NIMET wrote to the state governors. Practically, each informing them. So we've been trying to see how we can work with now the media, because in terms of climate communication or extreme weather communication, the media has a big role to play. I mean, you have to open up that, okay, this information gets to you, and I mean, this is public service. Let's start from there. I think that is one way. Two, we'll keep engaging with the state government, and I'm sure my DJ has been doing his best, engaging with state governments, and to see that this information, understand, NIMET doesn't stop at the national presentation. We go to the grassroots. We do what is called downscaling. This year we've covered almost 26 states, going to talk to people from the local government, crisscrossing I mean, giving them this information. That's the best we can do as government. And engaging state governments, we need to engage more. We need to talk. The media has a big role in climate communication. You are the conveyor of this information. You by what you do, you can save lives. And we are trying to see if we can work with the telcos, probably through the NCC, to develop such Amber Alert, which is key. With this event, I'm sure, and this idea, I'll still take it up to it. It has been on, it's been within our discourse, but probably this will bring it more, so that we'll get to meet with NCC that will now bring up all the telcos, so that we'll discuss how do we get an alert system if something is going to happen in area in location A. Every telecommunication service around that area should send information. It could be nationwide. You could be in Abuja, you know something, you could now reach out to your
network,
your network,
your relatives.
Your relatives. You'll be surprised what we'll do with communities using WhatsApp group. In fact, that is what as NIMED, that's what we do. We do community WhatsApp group where we just drop this information with them. The development partners we use, they've been of help. CBOs and NGOs, we've been using them to get this information. But as you said, we can still do much more.
All right. You know, it's funny sometimes where we have agencies that actually do a lot. And unfortunately, we don't know of these agencies until when things happen, when they come up, that's when, because I can remember during the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people didn't know we had a Center for Disease Control. No, a lot of people didn't know. A lot of people thought it was actually a new agency, but there was something that has been there before. So I think maybe more awareness should be created for situations like this. NIMED has done a great job. I mean, by being able to forecast and give us this early warning, I think it's something that's quite commendable. But a lot of people actually believe that there's still more to be done, and more can still be done, most especially when it comes to NIMED. And we've talked about a lot of solutions that we could bring to the fore now concerning this. Is there, just like you made mention, some of these things have been discussed, but we know climate change is here to stay. It is a real thing, and it's happening. It's a global thing. Lots of countries are making serious commitments towards mitigating it, towards finding solutions where they can. Is there a plan being developed now by NIMED of how we can be able to, a long-term plan now, not just, okay, this has happened, let's tell NEMA that there's going to be flood in 2 weeks, let them arrange their mattresses and go and give people, no. Is there a long-term plan, let's say, okay, between now and 2027, we can do this and do that, and maybe things, is there anything in development right now concerning that?
Well, the way NIMED is designed, we are to make focus. And the climate, we have the Ministry of Environment, where you have the climate change department that does policy.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people doing some. Ours is to make sure, like, we can give you short-range forecast, long-range forecast. Even the next 10 years, we can give you forecast. That is our mandate.
Okay.
In terms of environmental policies and the rest, there are other agencies that are saddled with it. So we are being careful not to overstep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We know our real responsibility is to early warning, make forecasts, archive the meteorological data, and use them for public good.
Okay.
Yes.
Talking about overstepping and using the analogy in a family. So sometimes you see that your child, whether male or female, is headed for, whatever path is taken is headed for disaster.
Sure.
But he has come of age. You want to think that he knows what he's doing, so you just allow him go, and maybe somehow he would self-righting. But it seemed to be eminent on hitting the rocks. You probably would have to go out of your way at some point to say, see, I see this danger. You don't understand it, and I need to save you from yourself. Beyond the mandate of NIMED, because this has become a national emergency. We are beginning to wake up, sort of, to the realization that NIMET is not just one small agency in the Ministry of Aviation, that it's now central to our entire ecosystem, whatever that entails. And we cannot now begin to just look at you as somebody who made focus over rainfalls, when the weather will be bad, so that the aviation agencies know what to do. I mean, we are now saying that you practically have to factor NIMET predictions into what you do as a person or as a corporate institutions. Can we begin to find other ingenious ways? Because you said something that was central. It has come to stay. You know, who knows? We may not take another 10 years before we see the next set of the disasters. If people do not understand this, you that seem to have a broader perspective that is seeing the end from the beginning, is there something we can do to sort of coerce, if you like, these agencies that are responsible to begin to respond in the manner that could minimize whatever that next disaster will be, however soon that will begin to happen?
So I think the way out is every sector of the economy needs to understand the weather in its design of activities. And for example, Ministry of Works and Housing, in terms of road construction and housing, we need to have a conversation, NIMET Ministry, for them to understand the return period. It will, in your design of bridges and road, that is why after some time you have road and they are after 1-2 seasons they're washed off. But by the time you understand the return period, you understand the material to use in that regard. So such conversation. So we'll look at data. Look, this your design for the 60s and 70s. The rainfall pattern is this way. Now it has increased by this %. So the material to use, you are expert. So you need to use materials that will last. If the return period is 10 years or 50 years of an extreme event, you should factor it in the design of the bridge. We are talking about a lot of, even in Yobe State, we had bridges that give way this year.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Jigawa as well.
Jigawa as well. Bauchi road network. And Bauchi Jigawa, that area, year in, year out, the road network keep collapsing. So that means you need to look at the design of the road and things, because there's a lot of this heavy and high intensity rainfall leads to some kind of erosion. So you need to factor that into your design. So NIMET, we are still open. We'll give every sector the information needed in their design and in policies, including state governments. But we will still work with our colleagues in the Ministry of Environment so that we go as a team. You know, we have evidence and the policy, so that we will now present this thing to each of the sectors the way, including telecommunications. You find out that even in your design, you find out marks and the rest giving way because of the design in terms of wind strength.
That's right.
And at the higher level, you find, above 10 meters, it's different from the wind strength here. You need to factor this, because when the marks give way, it may destroy properties, in some cases loss of life. Yeah, so some of these things we looked at them, and even in design of even billboards, the direction you set them up. So we discuss, and with this disaster, it gives a kind of visibility to NIMET, and we have people come in and we give them product and services that will help them in their activities.
Interesting. We've had a more revealing session, you know, when it comes to what role NIMET would play. And I'm wondering if my guest would be the right person to respond to some of the questions that would come next with regards to how big we think NIMET has become, and whether it is time for NIMET to now even become a standalone, so that we don't have to go through back channels to hit NIMET and all of that. We will find a way to bring out this conversation. The bottom line is to mainstream NIMET in just about everything we do when it comes to environmental impact assessments. That's our concern. However we do that, we will look at what options are available to us after this short breather. Please don't go away.
Welcome back. It's still Daybreak on Trust TV, and we've been talking about the environment generally, climate also in general, and of course we're talking about the recent flood disaster, or the current flood disaster that we're facing right now. We saw it coming, couldn't avert it. It's here now. What do we do? So, and we've been in deep conversation, and we've been talking about what steps we can actually take to make things better for the environment and for ourselves by extension. So just before we came back from the break, we were talking about how state governments can actually make a big mark when it comes to mitigating things like this. You talked about having the buy-in of state governments and most especially local governments because they are closer to the people, tell the people what they need to do. So is there any move right now to bring all these stakeholders together on a permanent basis, not just when something comes up, that's when we call you and brief you or anything like that. Having something like a platform whereby you guys will be in constant communication, sharing information here and there, and even bouncing ideas off each other, because I think the buy-in of the state governments is very, very important when it comes to situations like this, and there are things that they can be able to do within their own power to mitigate this. Is there any plan for that?
Yeah, there are plans, and we've been implementing some of them. For example, each year, January, at most February, we do the seasonal climate prediction, where we invite letters are written inviting state governors, commissioners, agric, environment, related agencies to up for the public presentation. I mean, that is one way every year. So we've been doing that for the past 15 years. And we'll keep, because that's you get them. Then my DG has, I think even this year, after the public presentation, makes a special presentation at the Governors Forum. I mean, he did that this year. So we try as much as possible using every avenue to get to the state government, giving them this information and then trying to make them, some of them invite us to the states to make presentation and the rest. And we have seen some development in some states in terms of infrastructure. We find out, yes, they've had above normal rainfall, but the impact wasn't much. Some of the states, probably Kaduna State, you could see some construction, drainages and the rest. So they had above normal rainfall within the metropolis, but the impact was not as previous years. So such, it's a gradual thing. And we just an example. Other states were doing theirs, and you see some of these things.
I have a question, but before I get the question, I thought I should put out these thoughts. Perhaps NIMET would also begin to consider a more advanced approach at putting out this information. And when I say that is, these days we see information, dissemination using a lot of graphics and video simulations. Especially in the aviation sector. They have a way of simulating what led to the last crash, what lessons they have learned, and how to avert the next crash, or even altering designs to permanently take care of whatever errors. Can we get to a point where you have seen clearly that this is the level of water it will take, this is the level the water is likely to rise to, this is what date it will arrive at XYZ environment? Can we begin to have area pictures and video simulations telling people that, look, by Friday, this is where your house is. This water level would have swallowed this house, and this is the likely impact. Maybe that way, the media would also quickly buy into it, because we are also on the side that is struggling to understand the magnitude of these things. It's only clear to us, like with the other state government, when the doomsday it's here. Maybe we can migrate to those kind of simulations that clearly put the disaster in the face of people and say, see, this is your fate in a couple of days or hours, except you move, or except you do ABC and XYZ. Maybe that will get it dying. That's on the one side. I thought I should put out that information. Or we have graphics that begin to then paint floodplains and the rest in red, clear reds in our maps, and begin to show clearly in a broader form that all of these places are in danger. And except this kind of, maybe that will begin to force the kind of actions we'd like to see. Because at the end of the day, we are all interested in surviving. We have to be alive before we think of whether we move people out of poverty or not. Sure. I mean, this singular act alone has sunk more people in poverty than anything that had happened in the last 10 years. Having said this, my question really is, looking at what's happening with your revelations on Tuesday about the opening of the dams and the rest that will further complicate situations for the southern state. Using the opportunity of this program, what is there you want to tell the residents? I mean, from some of the state government, they just basically say, don't come to work. And I'm wondering whether the houses are located in a place that are saved from the part. What else can they do? And like you said, you know when these things will happen. You have probably done a metrics of when it will recede. How long until they begin to get some form of respite?
So right now, the ITD is around 12 degrees, latitude 12.
By ITD, what?
Well, we're talking about the rainfall zone.
Okay.
So that means we're beginning to see some hazy weather condition in the extreme northern part of the country.
Okay.
So by the end of this month, the rainfall will reduce. It has reduced in the central state, but it will reduce further towards the end of the season. So the southern and coastal state will be active in November. And then probably towards by third week of November, in terms of rainfall, we'll have some relief. In terms of the dam, most of these dams are around the northern part and central part. So when the rain are now getting reduced, so there's no need to further. You rather want to save water for other activities, either for power or for agriculture. So we'll see probably the end of November for the coastal state. I'm sorry, they just have to, because it's already super saturated, and the rain will still be there till the end of November. For them, though, the magnitude might not be much. Okay. Since the drain, everything is going towards the Atlantic. You see Bielsa, you see big mansions inside the way. I mean, it's a sorry state, but that is what it is right now. And in terms of NIMET, we'll keep giving information and updates. Probably just like 2012, in 2013 there was big interest in terms of weather, and when there was nothing, 2014 there was nothing big, and so
interest in wind.
Until suddenly this year it is up again, and we'll keep giving updates and working with governments to make sure that this information gets out on time. And talking about animation, and you are in the media, you know some of these things are a bit costs. Right. Yes, and I mean, we do this as NIMET, but I'm sure the funding, we are under the Ministry of Aviation. And I mean, funding for disaster, even when they give disaster, I don't want to go into that. I mean, NIMET should be able to get money to do some of those things in terms of early warning. I mean, it's key, because animation brings, I mean, pictorially, when you give, we do the risks, with NEMA, they've done the risks, vulnerability risk mapping. Okay. Yes, but using animation, okay, in the next few days, the houses around here will be submerged, in the next 1 week or the next 1 month. You know, such things are very, 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 very good. And we are looking at ways to bring this disaster information through pictures, so that people will be able to really understand, appreciate these things.
Right. Well, it seems that there's a lot to do. A lot has been done, and there seems still to be a lot to do still. So my next question has to do with, okay, we've talked about what we didn't do. We've talked about what we're doing now, and in some part what we need to do. Can we expect something like this again probably next year or the year after that? Because this thing happened in 2012, just like you said, and there was lots of rancor. People talked a lot, just like we're talking now. Lots of things were said, we're not building right, we need to do dams, we need to do this. And then 2014 came and it was normal, it was not really anything, 15, 16, and then everybody just kept quiet. And now it's 2022 and we're looking at this right now. Should we be worried going forward? Will it take another 10 years before we see something like this, or will it happen more frequently?
What I would say, it may not take the next 10 years. This year, for a very long time, we've experienced the triple dip in the La Nina. It's too technical. One of the drivers that bring about extreme rainfall in Nigeria. It's a triple dip happening, so, and the driving effect is still on. So we are looking at 8 probably. We may still see some of these things sooner rather than later, if not next year. Just looking at the patterns, but I'm sure we already started working on the next year's forecast. So by December we'll have a clear picture if it's going to repeat itself, if it's going to be much more. We'll have a clear picture, and I'm sure by January it will be unveiled to the public. So we should prepare for, with climate change, these events will be more frequent. Just like we're having more frequent hurricanes now. Remember what happens here hits the ocean and becomes hurricane. All this rain that passes here, they hit the Atlantic, pick up energy and goes through the Gulf. And so we're having more frequent extreme events. And we just have to, as I said, it's here, we just have to live with it.
Quickly before we let you go, we have talked lightly about the impact on households and environment and all. I'm wondering, with this washing away of the topmost layer, which is the most conducive for agricultural activities, what will be the impact on food production? Are you also talking to research agencies so that they probably, they know how to play with your data, they know what the impact of your data is, so that we begin to also look at drought-resistant crops as a way of also, fine-tuning that sector to begin to look at things that can cope with this kind of challenges.
You see, NIMET, okay, I'm an agrometeorologist, so I do the agricultural component of it. And we work closely with the Research Institute, with IR and NRLS, IIT. We've been working closely in terms of the data, and it's from the data they now know the stress tolerant varieties have been developed based on the information we share, and we go down with them even to do community agricultural aspect. And as you said, in the food security system, this flood is going to affect availability and access to food, mostly due to increase in price, and for the those in the rural communities, because their stock, what they had before the harvest, and now the harvest will be low, so you have some reduction in there. So we may experience some food insecurity in the country, and so by the end of November, the analysis on the food and nutrition security will be made public. We are part of the team, so I made part working. So we'll do the analysis. I'm sure the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the lead agencies will share that information. But I see some stress level in terms of food insecurity.
All right. Well, it's been an interesting conversation talking about the environment and the current flood. And Mr. James Ijampi Adamu, thank you very much for coming. It's quite interesting to have NIMET's perspective about the whole flood issue. We've talked to a lot of people concerning this, and it's very good to have your perspective as well. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for giving us this platform.
All right.
We look forward to using your platform.
Exactly. All right. And this is how we're going to wrap it up on Daybreak this morning. Let's do it all again tomorrow. I am Ibrahim Yusuf.
It's a pleasure to have allowed us into your living room for free. As I say always, if you have missed out on anything, please hit our social media networks to catch up on what has been a very interesting package for this morning. Let's do this again tomorrow. I am Sunday Michael Ogu. Thank you.